Good morning. Oh, good afternoon. Uh, Technically it's good afternoon, right? Yeah, I guess. For me, it's good morning. I'm a, I'm an afternoon person. That's nice. Lovely. Yes. What I wanted. Okay, sorry, had an emergency. But we are back. And we are about to start. Now, I started the stream technically at 12 like I wanted to. But yeah. That's pretty much what I had to say. I started like I wanted to. I didn't start technically at 12, unfortunately, but I started it like I wanted to. I really did. I tried. Does that help? I really attempted, guys. I'm not even kidding to you. I really did. I so did. Can you tell? Look at my face. Can you tell? But anyways, let me change this here. Oh, I am in that one. No, it's okay. Okay. So once again, good afternoon, but it's good morning for me because, yeah, once again, I'm a late owl. I stay up late. It fucks me up with this. I really want to start having like, normal hours, but I'm so fucked up on my hours that it's not really a damn it, my hair does not like me. Look at this shit. It does not like me. I look crazy no matter what I do to my hair. I gotta go get a haircut. That's what I gotta do. Look at this. Look what they posted for Palworld. Did everybody see this? This is pretty cool. So they're planning on fixing bugs. That's always good news. I mean, it's common sense that they plan on fixing bugs. Like, if you didn't plan on fixing bugs, I don't know what the fuck you're planning on doing with this damn game. There's a lot of bugs. Even unlimited ball glitch. Like, there's a lot of bugs. Now, unlimited ball glitch is probably the worst of them all. So, you just gotta fix that. Players are not minding right now, but players get into that glitch on accident. So make it harder at the very least or something. But yeah, so they're gonna have key configuration improvements. So some settings probably to help with the AI, maybe, hopefully. And improvements to the base POW AI and pathing, which is awesome because these guys don't walk right. They just stutter their way there, like, and I don't know why. I don't get why. I don't know why they need to do this. What is the purpose? Is beyond me. Truly beyond me. But yeah, okay, so that's cool. And this is the coolest thing here, I think, personally. PvP is about to come in. I'm telling you, I'm gonna call it POW battles. We're gonna have POW battles, and I'm gonna fuck people up. raid bosses, endgame content. PAL Arena, PvP for PALs. PAL battles, boy! Steam and Xbox crossplay, which, phenomenal. I didn't think that was actually going to be a thing. I didn't think they were going to try to do that. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't think that was going to be a thing at all. Various Xbox feature improvements. I guess the Xbox is lacking. Server transfer and migrations. Now that is awesome. Improvements to the building system. Of course, why not make it more better? New islands, PALs, bosses, and technologies, which means new levels. So yeah, they're planning on coming out with some shit. And then I also wanted to see watch these video with you guys, but that's the wrong one. Here we go. I have Thor's live stream up as well, because Thor's cool. You should watch him. It's Pirate Software. If anybody hasn't followed, really cool guy.
Business, true. When it's a big hit, you get a big profit, but when it's not a hit, you get very little. Fundamentally, it's a high-risk, high-return business. And the most important thing is that it's almost impossible to know in advance whether a game will be a hit or not, even if the probability of the hit is...
Of course. But yeah, oops. But yeah, he's real good. Follow him, set him up, give him subscribe. If you're ever into game development, don't talk to him. Don't talk to me. I want to get into game development, and I probably am going to. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'll probably end up doing it sometime down the line. When? I don't know. But sometime down the line, I'll probably end up doing it. But that was okay, so to the point I was trying to make. There's a video I wanted to watch. Okay? And it has to do with... Hold on. Oh, I haven't watched this whole thing yet. I didn't want to do that. No! I don't want to add it to a queue. Close the player. Close it. Close it. Okay, so. There we go. Cool. Let's start the video up.
The latest Xbox Game Pass release to garner no small amount of attention, Palworld does so primarily because of the controversy surrounding its very concept. The game's art style and presentation are so very similar to that.
But so is Digimon. So is Dragon Quest. I can name more. I can name more. I just don't want to. There's no point. Because what's the point? You can't copy Pokemon for having mods. Too many people have
used
mods.
By Game Freak's Pokemon games that you may well find yourself wondering how this is even
Are
legal.
you my son?
Isn't this just a clear case of copyright theft? Especially given the Pokemon Company's standard zero-tolerance approach to fan games, and especially given that Palworld's big draw, at least from a meme perspective, is that it juxtaposes this incredibly Game Freak-esque art style with a level of violence that we don't normally explicitly see in the Pokemon world. So how then is Palworld even allowed to exist? Why is this game of all Pokemon fan games, being given a pass by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company, when so many other fan games have been taken down? The answer is in how Palworld navigates the tricky waters of intellectual property. Believe it or not, but the extreme violence shown in the game is actually one of the strengths that keeps Nintendo and the Pokemon Company off the game's back. First, before we get into this, a quick legal disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. This video does not constitute legal counsel. If you are making a Pokemon fan game...
No, but the fact of the matter is, okay guys, the fact of the matter is that they're not Pokemon. You may catch mons, train them, but in Pokemon, they don't build for you. In Pokemon, they don't only have 3 moves, and in Pokemon, you have over fucking 20 types. I'm probably over exaggerating with that, but you have a lot more types. It's you can't even copy the style, bro. It's not a single. It's just you can. If they get hit with a copyright, I'll be so surprised.
Of your own, and you want to know where you stand from a legal perspective, do property. Take this off now. Didn't fit anyway. It's my kid's hat. I've been wanting to do a video on this topic for a very long time now and have not found quite the right inspiration or the right moment to make it, and the release of Palworld certainly feels like that could be it. So I want to talk about how intellectual property law works.
Palworld is a great game.
Essentially, for the purpose of this video and for the purpose of every fan game, there are 3 types of intellectual property that you need to be aware of. Most people think, oh, it's just copyright and something's infringing copyright and that's going to cause all the problems. No, it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. You've got patents, you've got trademarks, and you've got copyright. And all of them work slightly differently, and all of them protect different types of intellectual property. And
I can't explain them to you, so he's obviously going to do it.
The way that Palworld gets around the Pokemon Company's normally very strict, tight grip on their intellectual property is in which of these 3 it plays with and how it avoids triggering the problems that would constitute a lawsuit if used in the wrong way. Let's get patents out of the way very quickly because they're not particularly relevant to what we're talking about today. Patents cover an idea, a particular type of design of a thing, something that you have thought of and that you have said, I own this idea. And in order to get a patent, you can't just have it automatically. You need to get it approved from a patent office. You need to apply, you need to pay money, and then the patent office will say, yes, your idea is significantly distinct from everything else, and indeed your idea is specific enough that we can give you a patent because it's not a general widespread thing. You can't patent, for example, the concept of walking on 2 legs. You can't patent, for example, the idea of trousers or of shoes or of different things, but you can patent the specific design of the shoes. You can patent the way that the laces connect if you've got a particularly novel, unique idea for how the shoes should hold their laces, etc. Where things get more relevant to Palworld are in trademarks and copyright. There's a fair amount of overlap between these 2, but they are their own distinct things. You can get something which infringes on copyright but does not infringe on a trademark, and vice versa, something which infringes a trademark but does not infringe on a copyright. A trademark is very simply the mark of your trade. It is the identifier, the word or the image that people associate strongly with your brand. So the Pokemon Company owns the trademark on the word Pokemon. They are the only ones that are allowed to sell a product as being part of the Pokemon brand. Meanwhile, copyright, again very simply, is the right to make a copy of something. You can't copyright an idea. That's what a patent is for. So if I read a book and I like the concept of it, I like the core principle in the middle of it, I can take that and I can use that as the basis of my own book. This happened with the book The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail by Michael Vagent, Richard Lay and Henry Lincoln. It is a theological book which puts forth the hypothesis that Jesus Christ married Mary Magdalene and had children with her. The book then was read by Dan Brown, another author who loved the general concept so much that he adapted it into his fictional work, The Da Vinci Code, and it's a central point of the story of the Da Vinci Code. The authors of The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail were not particularly pleased with this and attempted to sue Brown for using their idea in his book, but they were unsuccessful because you can't copyright an idea. To this end, the Pokemon Company does not own the right to make games about catching monsters, and indeed they shouldn't because they were not the first people to do it. There are many examples of the genre that I've heard called Mon-likes, which I quite like that as a name, such as Shin Megami Tensei, which long predated
That's what I'm saying.
not the first game.
There's plenty of games that had things with Mons, bro. They cannot copyright that.
Featured Pokemon-style gameplay. Pokemon, though, did it in a way that was wonderfully palatable to a lot of people around the world and did it with a very distinct art style. We've seen a recent boom in indie developers taking on the Mon-like genre and interpreting it in different ways. We've had Cassette Beasts, we've had Temtem, and now we've got Palworld, which does its own thing with this, even though it looks very, very similar to the Pokemon Company's game. Similar to how you can't copyright an idea within a game, you also can't copyright a gameplay mechanic and you can't copyright an art style, and that means that all of the things that make Pokemon unique are indeed free and available for anybody to use. What the Pokemon Company can control, though, and what they can stop you doing is releasing any game with the name Pokemon in the title, and they can stop you from using Pikachu's face or likeness. This is because the appearance of Pikachu, the character, is trademarked by the Pokemon Company. He is synonymous with the brand. When you see Pikachu, you think the Pokemon Company. Now, the Pokemon Company has some Pokemon names trademarked and some Pokemon names are not trademarked. So, for example, Bulbasaur is trademarked, Charizard is trademarked, Scorbunny I found is trademarked. There's a wonderful list, because of how trademarks work, of everything that is currently trademarked and by which company and the address of that company. So you can very easily search for and find some of these names. At the same time, looking at the UK database of trademarks, I wasn't able to find a trademark for Cyndaquil, for Totodile, and for some other Pokemon names, so some are trademarked and some are not. What's more, the appearance of these Pokemon, the specific design of these characters, aren't necessarily trademarked, but their exact design would be copyrighted.
Yes.
It's not an idea, but if you make a copy of the exact design as it appears in a different piece of work, you are still making a copy, even if it's not necessarily a perfect copy.
Yeah.
To that end, one wrinkle in copyright law involves derivative works. The idea that if you just read a book and then take large chunks of the text from that book and put them into your own book, you are still infringing on copyright, even if you're not copying the entire thing across. Similarly, if you're making a picture that is based on a character that somebody else has designed, you are copying that character. No, you're not copying the idea, but you are copying the design.
Okay, I understand. So if you copy, so for example, if someone was to come out with a game like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, and you collect souls and fight bosses with the same kind of gameplay status, and they just renamed the bosses, and the map was blue instead of green, it'll be the same thing then, pretty much, I guess. I understand.
Which is copyrighted, and if that seems complicated and confusing and like there's a huge grey area in the middle, yep, welcome to copyright law. Like most copyright cases involve trying to puzzle out what actually constitutes a derivative work and what is just fair use, the use of a similar idea or a similar concept. Take anything that Ed Sheeran has had to do in any court case in the last year and you've got a pretty good example. We've gone into detail in a previous video about the estate of Sherlock Holmes and how they are very on it in protecting their legal claim, what they claim to have control over, which is the idea of Sherlock Holmes being nice. Because the character of Sherlock Holmes is long since out of copyright, he is within the public domain. But the idea of Sherlock being kind only appears in some of the later works, which were under copyright for a lot longer, and the Sherlock Holmes Foundation asserts that therefore any work which shows Sherlock Holmes in a compassionate light is infringing on their copyright, which is obviously nonsense. But this is how copyright law works, is that people end up trying to make a bigger claim than they necessarily can hold on to. Indeed, it's that attitude of the grabbing a bit further than we can really reach and just seeing how things puzzle out in court that is a large driver of the way that the Pokemon Company and Nintendo are often a little bit over-ambitious in the way that they shut down fan projects. There are concerns that if a company doesn't maintain a strong boundary and says, no, this is ours, you can't touch it, even when dealing with fan works, that other companies might be eager to kind of sink their teeth into it a little bit, just kind of test it, push the edge, try and just help themselves to a little bit of what that other company owns.
I guess we will.
So Palworld gets around intellectual property law surrounding trademarks by simply not using the word Pokemon and not indeed using a title that sounds anything like Pokemon, just to be as distinct as possible. The game also does not feature Pikachu, and it doesn't feature any of the names of Pokemon that we have seen in actual Pokemon games that might be trademarked or copyrighted. But what it does do is feature a lot of characters, a lot of animals that look very, very similar to the Game Freak art style in a way that we don't normally get in these mon-likes. Indeed, it could be said that Palworld is in danger in some places of failing the squint test. In 2012, Tetris Holdings LLC sued Shio Interactive Limited over a Tetris clone that had appeared on the iOS App Store. The game in question, Mino, featured gameplay that was very similar to Tetris, which the judge reiterated very early in the case was not a problem because you can't copyright gameplay. However, the game also had a visual style that was almost identical to the Tetris games that were coming out for mobile at the same time. In this case, the game failed the squint test. If you took a screenshot of Mino and you put it next to a screenshot of Tetris and you squinted at them, it was very difficult to tell the two apart. And for that reason, the judge ruled in favor of Tetris. So according to the judge in that case, the borderline as to whether or not a game is infringing on copyright is, quote, if one has to squint to find distinctions only at a granular level, then the works are likely to be substantially similar. So, as said, in places, Palworld could be in danger of failing the squint test. The designs of these characters and the art style in general are so similar to Pokemon that it looks like this is copying Pokemon to a degree that is not transformative enough and would be considered derivative. And then we get to the other side of the gameplay. Because, of course, that's the big meme with Palworld, that it's Pokemon and it looks so much like Pokemon, but it's got that added level of violence. You'll notice I'm being deliberately very coy about describing what kind of violence, and there's a reason for that. This is YouTube, can't really talk about some things very openly. You can look it up on the internet, it's very easy to find, and indeed I'm probably being a bit too cautious, but whatever, this is a family channel, I don't want to go into it. To this end, then, if Palworld was simply a mon-like in the traditional sense, with this art...
Hold up, you ain't going past that. This bitch just smacked it on the ass and it shattered egg out.
If
Nope.
Cautious, but whatever, this is a family channel, I don't want to go into it. To this end, then, if Palworld was simply a mon-like in the traditional sense, with this art style, with this design, with these characters, then yes, it could potentially be seen as infringing on the Pokemon Company's copyright because it is derivative, it is not substantially transformative of the original Pokemon idea and the way that most modern Pokemon games are presented. Because of the unique quirk in its gameplay, because of that weird twist to the formula, because it's the kind of game that makes people go, what, why did somebody make this, why? Because of that, Palworld is not actually infringing on the Pokemon Company's copyright. And while it's not necessarily the kind of game that I personally would want to play, and while I can't speak to the quality of the game itself, I have nothing but respect for the way that Pocket Pair have dodged and swerved their way around intellectual property law in order to get this thing out the door. So then, the moral of the story, if you want to make your own Pokemon fan game, and again, this is not legal advice, but if you want to make your own Pokemon fan game, don't call it Pokemon, put in your own character designs, and add something weird to the mix.
100%. 100%. But yeah, I figured, listen, I knew Pokemon was not going to be able to sue. I don't think, if, like I said, if they're able to sue them, I'll be so surprised, guys. I'm not even I'm like so surprised.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today we got to look at the controversy of Palworld. You know, a day ago I made a video talking about this game, basically telling you that I enjoy it. Today we're looking at the actual controversies. Did this game steal from Nintendo? Is Nintendo gonna sue them? And God forbid, is it doing something haram, like using artificial intelligence to generate some of the art assets? Today we're going to try to find the answers to these questions in an investigative report that I like to call The Controversies of Palworld. Now this starts off with Palworld basically patting itself on the back and telling us that it sold 4 million copies in only 3 days. 3 days they sold 4 million copies of a game that's also available for free on Game Pass, okay? Momentum has increased since yesterday with the latest sales at 86,000 units per hour, okay? So that's a lot of units sold, okay? That's a lot of copies of a game that kind of dropped seemingly out of nowhere and sold a lot. In fact, it didn't just sell a lot. Right now, in the dead of night, 3 in the morning, witching hour, it's getting 896,000 people playing right now. In fact, looking at the Steam charts itself,
I was one of them.
Beat the, well, it didn't beat the all-time peak of Counter-Strike, but a 24-hour peak, it did beat. See, Palworld is one of the top 10 games in Steam's all-time history that's actually like breaking like records. So if you want to compare it, ladies and gentlemen, it's beaten Baldur's Gate 3. It hasn't beaten Dota 2, slightly just under it. We're talking a few thousand players. And of course, PUBG remains the champion by a large margin of the all-time Steam peak. Palworld really did seemingly come out of nowhere. And I say seemingly because obviously, as you know, in the last several years, survival games have taken off, okay? Survival games are still an era of, or an aspect of gaming, or a genre of gaming that millions of people love to play, okay? You put a podcast on the side, you sit down, and you play a game with your brain turned off for hours on end. And you just progress by building a cabin, then a mansion, then a crack mansion. You know, you might tame a few dinosaurs or monsters, upgrade your weapons piecemeal at a time. There are so many types of these games that exist, and the gameplay loops that they provide, if they are fed well, if they are done right, can keep people playing for hours on end, okay? People literally come home from working their job to play another job. And this isn't new. We've been doing this since the days of Shenmue, okay? Whether we be working forklifts or flying through the galaxies in No Man's Sky, survival games ain't going anywhere. But with Pokemon, as you all know, has gotten such a negative rap in the last several releases that we have come to basically making fun of this franchise. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are typically hated by the grand majority of people that like to rip on them, at least if you watch it on YouTube, right? There's a lot of people, me included, that call Game Freak out on their laziness, okay? The fact that this game comes out on the same piece of hardware that, Tears of the Kingdom, Xenoblade, Shin Megami Tensei 5 exist, yeah, this is the same platform that has all of those games and still sits with a dud we call Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But see, Nintendo doesn't actually care about that
Pokemon,
because for
though.
every single
my
person
God, my Pikachu.
shitting on it on the internet, I'm just going to show you the sales quote of Pokemon.
Oh my God, my
company,
Pikachu.
Scarlet and Violet are the most pre-ordered titles in the series history.
Well, it's Pikachu on my
so
chest. I just
that
want to let you know
alone
that.
should tell you it doesn't matter how many copies of Palworld is sold.
Too.
Pokemon is still the king. And of course, within 3 days of its release, the game has sold over 10 million copies worldwide. The sales figure was the highest of any software on any Nintendo platform within 3 days. So yes, by September 2023, the game has sold 23.23 million copies. So to give you a quick idea here, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how much you make fun of Game Freak, in Nintendo's eyes, they are worth more than the guys that develop Zelda, Xenoblade, fucking Mario, any of their IPs. Pokemon is still printing yen, dollars, bahts, euros, whatever currency you can imagine, okay? So Palworld isn't really infringing on Nintendo. But there have been a lot of people who have basically called out Palworld for its rather, I guess you could say, plagiarized assets. So we're going to look at the definition of plagiarism. Plagiarism is a representation of another person's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions as one's own original work. And again, if we look at copyright infringement, which I think more so applies to this situation, copyright infringement occurs when a person uses content protected by copyright in a way that violates rights granted in the Copyright Act. Now, to understand, there's been a few people who've said, I can't wait for the Nintendo lawsuit to come in. And here's the thing, Palworld, for anybody following the development of this game, it was actually announced 2 years ago. In fact, specifically June 5th, 2021 is when the announced trailer had actually dropped. And I watched this announced trailer, and without a shadow of a doubt, a lot of the actual designs of the actual, PALs do exist in this original release. However, what I also see in this original release is some of these cool animations that I don't actually see in the final build of the game. Yeah. It actually seems like this stuff never actually made it. But if you look closely, you can see that these sheeps, actually a lot of the mons that are actually in Palworld do seem to exist in this situation. And their concept of Pokemon with guns is still very much alive here. So yeah, these designs were shown years ago, and Nintendo did not give a flying hoot about it. So here's some of the most egregious examples of, I guess you could say, copyrighted or Pokemon that are a little bit too close to the actual Game Freak variant. This is Lamball, one of the first mons you find in Palworld. Yeah. And of course, if you compare this a little bit with Wooloo, you might notice, whoa, hot damn, that's a bit too similar than I would expect. I mean, it's got the same poofball style. It's missing the buttons here compared to Lamball. And of course, if we look at the horns over here, yeah, the horns are there. Slightly different color. I don't know if that might be the lighting. Actually, it is a different color. The ears, which are, sort of aiming to the side. You got ears that are kind of aiming to the ground. But of course, you're missing the actual dreadlocks. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I would say that it's probably an inspired asset. For copyright infringement, these things typically have to be one-to-one. And there are, I guess, enough differences that appear where this isn't going to be taken to court. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but again, this is not a exact one-to-one rip. Not to say that it isn't, very inspired. So of course, this, ladies and gentlemen, right here is Dire Howl. Now, this looks suspiciously close to Lycanroc. Now, again, I'm just kind of putting it out there. These are wolves at the end of the day, wolf-type Pokemons. And last I checked, wolves look pretty similar to one another, okay? Look, at the end of the day, it's a wolf Pokemon, right? I don't think you can draw a wolf that differently. Now, again,
You got
is
a
it
great
1-to-1?
point.
Obviously
You
not.
got a great point.
This is where it gets really egregious, though. Okay,
Yeah,
so
okay.
the examples I showed you so far, you know, they had their differences. But, ladies and gentlemen,
I mean, this
this
has a
right
difference.
here is Anubis. Okay.
Yes.
Quite
I'm gonna
literally,
catch
it
him.
is Anubis. That is the Palworld equivalent of it. Don't believe me? Palworld Anubis. That's literally what it's called. I'm not even joking with you. That's the actual name. They didn't even change it. Now, Anubis is an Egyptian god, and if you know anything about ancient Egyptian gods, you could probably see, oh shit, I can see why this is Anubis. You got that kind of design going on. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a Pokemon aficionado, you probably know I'm about to show you Lucario, which, from what I understand, is also based on Anubis, okay? Lucario is a Canid-like Pokemon, partly based on Anubis. Now look, there are similarities here, but unless we're going to start digging up the tombs in Egypt and start, like, taking this to court between, like, ancient Egypt and modern-day civilizations,
they're not even that similar,
I don't
bro.
think anybody's going to be testing it. But again, clearly you could see that this is like the Lucario version, or at least what's the closest to it. Now this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is Lifmunk from Palworld, and if you look at it, obviously this is kind of similar to Leafeon. Again, there are still some differences. Like this kind of looks like a Pikachu. What is the smaller version? Like the Pichu / Leafeon version. Okay, so there's definitely some aspects I would say, or some inspiration it's found. Fan-made Pokemon may have been ripped directly. Now this is more egregious than anything Game Freak had too. This account by Barbie Elite actually showed the one Mon in Palworld Arsox, and then they compared it to, I shit you not, this is a Pokemon known as Flareys from a fan game known as Pokemon Sage, okay? So if you're looking at both these Pokemon, or both these like monsters, you can see that there's definitely more similarities here than anything Game Freak might have brought on. Again, if you squint your eyes, it might even appear to be the same exact goddamn monster. So yes, there's definitely inspirations being taken on development of this game. And whether you want to get into the plagiarism argument or the copyright infringement, those are all for courts to decide. And ultimately, I don't think Nintendo or really any company...
But it's a Pokemon fan game. What are you going to do?
So that's one of the first...
It's a Pokemon fan game. What are you going to do? What the hell? We back? I gotta test audio. That was weird. There we go, refresh. Make sure the audio is still coming in for you guys. No, YouTube, the audio is coming in. But the audio is not coming in.